This video is about lending. Now, I have a lot of clients reach out who want to know about bridging finance, mortgages, cash, how lending affects themselves, whether they're UK-based, buying into a company, or international. So this video is about lending and the simple breakdown of that. So in about 2 seconds, I've got an interview with a mortgage broker who I can highly recommend, who I know has been doing this for years. He knows bridging, he knows mortgages, etc. And yeah, we're going to interview him, get some fundamental questions laid out for your benefit. So also, if you like this video as well, subscribe and like to it, because it shows me that you like the video. Subscribe to the channel where you see more content like this. It's based upon providing as much value as possible, based upon the experiences I have every day as a property sourcing company and property investor myself. And I talk to a lot of people who want this information. So if you like it, subscribe and like and comment if you want any improvements in the comment section. Let's deep dive into it and go. Here we are, Michael. Michael is a broker. Where are you from? What company you're from? I'll make your life easier and go from that way. Go for it.
Yeah, spot on. So based in Norfolk, cover the UK. So it doesn't matter where, anywhere kind of across the UK or even overseas, potentially some clients. And my business is The Mortgage Minder.
Bish, bash, bosh, short and sweet. So the reason for this video is literally to give you guys context on lending, because everyone who approaches me, same as you get, Michael, literally they want to know about bridging, they want to know about cash, mortgage buys. So let's go through the super basics for it to help everyone. So bish, bash, bosh. And I'm going to read out the questions. This is why I kind of look all focused. So what is the difference between a mortgage and a bridging loan?
Yeah, I guess the major difference would be when you look at a mortgage, it's kind of long-term loans, so long-term kind of debts, as to speak. Bridging is definitely short-term. With the costs and the fees associated, you're definitely not going to want to be on anything long-term in reference to bridging.
Good answer.
Super kind of simple reason why is normally speed, and we'll come on to that, I'm sure, in a minute anyway.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, when would you use a bridging loan instead of a mortgage? So yeah, good point.
Yeah, definitely. So the main reason we see, two main reasons, either speed, someone needs to get the cash or the funds to buy this property really quick, or one thing that a lot of people won't think of is quite a few properties that I'm sure you work with, to be fair, Ryan, and for clients, is they won't necessarily be mortgageable at the start. So you need either cash, where someone's not telling you how a property has to be. We're not all blessed with 100, 200, 300,000 pounds in cash. So bridging would give you the ability to purchase like a cash buyer, but without a mortgage.
Good answer. How much money do I need to get started? Put you on the spot.
Good question. How long's a bit of string?
Yeah.
I'm going to sit on the fence. So depends where you're buying. I know, Ryan, you're an expert, particularly in the kind of Wales region. So generally, and we've got a project, that we're running together. So generally, I would say you need 25% deposit on a personal name buy-to-let or a limited company buy-to-let. Bridging, they generally want 25%, but you can look at less. And with some lenders, you can even put your refurb cost within the bridging. So a few things there. However, a good buy-to-let rental return, you can go 20% comfortably on a limited company buy-to-let.
Good answer. Good answer. Can I use lending if I don't have regular salary? So if I don't have a regular salary, can I still use bridging, etc., if I'm self-employed or run a business?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mortgage myth. We get this all the time. If you don't have a salary, yes, most lenders like to see it. However, bridging or buy-to-let limited company and personal name, there are lenders that have no minimum requirement for income. So it's possible, but your lending range might go from 30, 40 lenders to a smaller amount.
Yeah, great point. What about interest rates? So interest rates compared to mortgage, compared to bridging / mortgages, how do they differ and what they look like?
I thought you were going to ask me then, are they going to go up or down? And that's
no, I wouldn't be that horrible. I'll do it after this call.
Yeah, so that's the one we always get asked. So yeah, mortgage interest rates, as of today on a limited company buy-to-let, the lowest rate is 3% with big arrangement fees, but a really low interest rate. But the average is around 4 to 6%. Bridging loans have a lot of associated fees, and it's around 0.7 to, I would say, 1.5 per month in terms of an interest rate. But it's the fees that normally stack up with the bridging finance.
So the next question is how fast can you get the money? And I'm gonna say that I'm both a bridging and a mortgage just for comparison. So how quickly can you get the money in that sense?
Yeah. So just from experience with limited company buy-to-lets and personal names, from applying to the from the mortgage to getting the mortgage approved is normally a week to 2 weeks. So really quick in terms of approval. Then it's the kind of backdated kind of process that we've got, the legal system in the UK, that slows it down to 1 month to say 4 or 5 months. Yeah. Which we all know, and we all probably pull our hair about. I mean, you know this particularly well following our recent investment.
That's fun every day for me, man. Jesus Christ. Yeah, good times.
But yeah, I would say on average, like legal process and mortgage, you're going to be looking at 2 to 4 months, depending on how quick your solicitor is. Bridging finance can be approved a lot quicker. And you can get the money through the legal kind of process as well a lot quicker. So you're probably looking anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, makes sense. What about costs? So besides the interest, what costs do you have with just bridging now in that sense?
Yeah, just bridging. You're going to be looking at potential valuation fees. Quite often the legal fees you'll pay for your own legal fees, and you'll also pay for the bridging lenders, solicitors to act for their behalf, and obviously your own solicitor. You then also have the remortgage at the back end of it, which a lot of people forget about with the bridging finance.
Great point, guys. Great point.
So yes, there's original fees, but remember, you're not staying on bridging. So 6 to 12 months later, you're going to have remortgage finance, broker fees, etc. There's going to be arrangement fees, typically 1 to 2% of the loan. And then sometimes there's exit fees. I've seen administration fees coming out your ears, but they are very, very useful for the right project.
Great answer. So when it comes to actually showing your income, so let's say you want to get a bridging loan, whether you're self-employed, work with someone else, etc., you want to show proof of your income to get your lending. Do you need to show proof of your income? Long story short.
Yeah, no. So even limited company or bridging, you don't. They will often ask for it, and quite often, if you can prove it, you're going to get a better rate or more options. If you haven't got that, with bridging finance, they're looking at the deal specifically. They're not particularly worried about you. Of course, they're going to have a little look into that, but they're going to go, is this deal going to work? How strong is this deal? And how realistic is that exit route out of it? If it looks strong, they're more going to kind of look at the specifics of that rather than you.
Great answer. So what if you have bad credit, or you've got missed payments, or etc., etc.?
Bridging or limited company buy-to-lets, both we can work with clients. CCJs, defaults, the famous CCJ parking ticket that you didn't pay 3 years ago. That is the classic that we see all the time. But either or, we can make it work normally. If it's bridging finance, again, they're looking at the deal rather than you.
Love that. So can you get lending for property that needs a full renovation? So if you've got a project there that's completely run down, you need to spend 30 grand renovating it, can you get lending for that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is where bridging finance comes into its element. So lenders, sometimes you can have a nice sparkly brand new property, and you might be going to the mortgage works for a limited company buy-to-let. They might be happy with the property, but if you've got a rundown one next door, they can sometimes say no. So it's not even sometimes just about your property; it's about what surrounds it.
Whereas such a good point.
Which is mental. I've had one this week. They turned it down because there was a derelict property next door, and they're worried about the influence on there. This said, that's where bridging loans come into it. So bridging loans, they're worried about your property, your investment, your exit plan. They're not really looking particularly if it needs a full refurb, etc., etc. The other key point that I would say with limited companies, buy-to-let, standard mortgages, you must have working kitchens and bathrooms to get mortgages in general. If they don't have kitchen and bathrooms, you're generally not going to get a limited company buy-to-let unless we go with a lender like Together, Shawbrook, Foundation Home Loans. So in short, it's a bit of a long-winded answer, but if it needs a hell of a lot of work, bridging loans are probably going to be the way forward. If it's a light refurbishment, maybe a change of bathroom, a change of kitchen, then we could look at the limited company buy-to-let route.
I think you summed up very, very well. And then, so let's say you've got, you're on a bridging finance, you've got this absolute horrible property, you've renovated it using lending. On the back end, how do you actually repay or get out of the bridging?
Yeah, and you've just answered the reason why they look at the specific deal itself, so that they're not too worried about, like we've just said, your salary, your adverse credit. They care about what you've just described as the exit strategy. If that looks poor, they probably will not lend on the property. If you haven't really got much margin or they're not happy, that's what they look at, because essentially your exit strategy is how you're going to pay their debt, their bridging loan back. That's going to be either by reselling the property at a good margin, like a flip type property, or you're going to refinance the property onto a limited company mortgage that we do, and the remortgage, the refinance is going to pay off that bridging loan. So that's why your margins can't be, if your margins are super tight and as anything goes wrong, obviously that's where the worry of the bridging loan and the fees and the continued fees could be.
Love that. Great answer. So you kind of already touched on this already, but like, can you borrow through a limited company, or do you have to be in your personal name?
I mean, I'm going to flip onto you, Ryan, on this one. I'll answer it after you, but just out of curiosity, out of all your investors, which I know you work with loads, how many do personal name and how many do limited company on the remortgage or straight up on the?
It's a great point. I've had one in the past 100 go on personal name, and that's because he wanted one property. He doesn't have a salary, he doesn't have a job, and he just had 30k sat there. He wanted to get a buy-to-let one, and he didn't do it for the right reasons. Like, he was just building a portfolio, and long story short, it made more tax efficient sense for him to buy into his personal name than a limited company. So therefore he did. But that was the one exception. Most times you are going to be going into a limited company, and if you're going to build a portfolio, the substantial, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And the same for me as a broker. I've got one in my personal name because it was the only time we would normally see someone having a buy-to-let in their personal name, residential or buy-to-let section, is because they've lived in the house and they've ended up buying with a partner and they've just turned their resi into a buy-to-let. That's normally the only reason. I'm not going to give advice on tax because
I know I was going to say it's not tax advice, guys.
It's not tax advice. It's not tax advice. But go to the accountant. I can recommend a good one.
The irony.
Advert popping up here. But what I would say is, in short, and this isn't tax advice, you pay obviously your tax on all your income through your personal name. If you do it through a limited company, you can write off a lot of expense. So I can speak from experience. The personal name buy-to-let I've got does not do well. The limited company buy-to-lets that we've got or going to have are going to be much more efficient. So there's one way for it.
No, I think that's good. I think it sums it up very, very well in a very, like, from my side, it's very simplistic forms. That's really, really good. So yeah. Always, guys, if you're debating it, talk to a financial advisor. They'll direct that, and then talk to a broker. Then talk to myself about X, Y, and Z.
You're Ryan for your tax advice.
I'll get in trouble with the FCA at this rate. What is a decision in principle? So let's say someone's come to you, they've been asked for a DIP, blah, 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 blah. Like, what is that?
Absolutely. Really good questions. We get called MIP, DIP, and AIP. They're all the same thing. So it's pre-approval for a mortgage from the lender based off the details you put in it. It's only as good as the person putting the details in. If you earn 100k a year on a personal name mortgage, well, unless you earn 100k a year, you're going to get a false reading. So it checks your credit score, it checks your affordability based off the rent or your own income, dependent if you look at resi or buy-to-let, and it gives you the power to put an offer on a property.
Love that. Very simple model. I like the way you explain that. Very, very kind of simplistic. So let's say you were sat there right now with 100k in your pocket. You want to invest into, you want to build a buy-to-let portfolio in a company, yada, yada, yada. How many properties can you accumulate in that portfolio? Is there a limit? Is there not?
Yeah, so 100k in the bank, how many properties can you get? It just depends on the model you go with. And I know you're a big advocate of this. And I think a lot of people will do cash as their first one because they would just want that kind of simplicity of knowing the journey and how it works. And as they get more progressed, they might kind of venture into splitting their money into bridging. Clearly, if you buy 100k property cash, it's swallowing all your money up if you've got 100 grand. If you did bridging, you might be looking at 2, 3, properties. So, yeah, it just depends on how you want to do it. But as much as you can make your money work for you, really.
It is a very open, and it's a bit of an awkward question to be fair, because it's very open, isn't it? Because like the sky's the limit if the funding's there at the same time, isn't it? So it's bit of an awkward question. So apologies for that.
But yeah, you can buy as many as you want. Essentially, if you've got enough money, buy as many as you can as quickly as you can if it's the right deal.
And book a call with us for that. Yeah.
And book a call with me.
Kind of reel it in. Can you buy at auction with these finances, or do you need cash? So do you need bridging, or do you need cash? How does it all work with auction?
Yeah, I see this all the time. Clients come to me and they go, Michael, I found a great house starting at this cost, which it often doesn't finish at. Big FYI, auctions come with normally anywhere based off the purchase price, but often between 5 to 10,000 is the common kind of mark, and it's non-refundable 9 times out of 10. So if you're buying at auction, make sure that the sourcing agent, of course, Ryan, although we don't necessarily like to use that word sourcing, but yeah, the agent, Ryan, I should say. But even if you're buying yourself through an auction, do your kind of due diligence, because you can lose money quickly. Most people don't like to buy with a normal mortgage, limited company mortgage, through an auction of the risk that it gets turned down. But a top tip, if you are thinking the property is mortgageable and you're buying it through auction for a normal mortgage, a lot of auction houses will allow you to apply for the mortgage before the auction, get your valuation, because that's the sticking point, done on the property. So you can have a mortgage offer before you win it via the auction. Just means that actually, if you do get your offer accepted, you're good to go. But 9 times out of 10, just to go back to your question, bridging finance and cash, either or, they both work. Bridging, you just don't need as much of the cash.
Yeah, but I really like I love the kind of top tips side to it as well. It's like one thing doing, yes, you can do either, but it's like, I feel like if anyone's looking at auction, those things can really help. So I think that's really good. You involve that. As a broker, how do you help with this? I know it maybe seems a simple question, but what does a broker do essentially from a high level overview point of view?
Yeah, I won't bore you too much.
You got 20 minutes, go for it.
Give me an hour. So in terms of why a broker rather than a bank, so being really kind of simple, firstly, like brokers, certainly with someone like myself, you can WhatsApp me, similar to you, Ryan, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. We all know trying to get to a bank or speak to a bank, it's hard work at the best of times. So constant support. If you're investing your life savings or your yearly savings or however much it is, we'll all say, like, in property investing, mortgages, it is a roller coaster. It's never straightforward. It's never simple. So having the right team in place, me and Ryan, of course, but having the right team in place just means we're going to be able to support you, take that little bit of stress away from the journey. So that's the first point. Me and Ryan also, both for our clients, we would help negotiate the best price for a property. So for a lot of my residential clients, I actually ring the estate agent and negotiate deals for them, similar to Ryan does for his clients. So the negotiating side, financially, you can get a much better deal, Ryan, like you have with my project, than I would be able to in Wales. And it's similar for me. Look at across the whole of market, a lot of lenders don't deal with clients direct. Especially when you start getting to the quirkier stuff. We could all ring and go to Nationwide for a normal residential mortgage. But who is Together Bridging Finance or Shawbrook or Foundation Home Loans? Most normal clients wouldn't know where to start with bridging or the limited company buy-to-let stuff.
Yeah, no, summed up really well, to be fair. I think that's great. And just for context, guys, when we're talking about the project me and Michael have together, Michael literally is doing this himself. Yes, he's a broker alongside this, and he's been doing it for several years. Very competent, very knowledgeable, as you guys can see. But he's also building a portfolio, and it feeds perfectly into all this. And he's going through us to do so. So you can see the synergy there. So just a bit of context to anyone watching this.
Definitely. And just kind of going back to that, like, I could have easily tried to bodge my way through buying my first couple of buy-to-lets, potentially through Wales. But For me, having you and your expert team is priceless, and it's the same as a broker. You know, it's having them expert the team around it, which makes the project and the process better.
Yeah, and I got to say, anyone just to follow on that with your side, anyone who's looking to use a good mortgage broker, in the comments of this video, I'll put a link to reach out to yourself to get you bombarded with contacts. If anyone wants to contact you, talk to a reliable broker, or have just peace of mind in terms of what's available, they can book in a call, Michael, that way as well. If that's okay with you.
Of course it is. Yeah, of course. Not a problem at all.
Awesome. So one of the biggest things that we've got is because like we use a lot of social media and the internet for marketing and show what we do. A lot of our clients are nowhere near UK.
Yeah.
So therefore overseas and Asia, Europe, all sorts. So for anyone who doesn't live in the UK, let's jump onto that topic.
Yeah.
So if you live outside the UK, can you even invest? Let's jump onto that.
Absolutely. Yeah. In short, a few more some kind of hoops to jump through as to speak. But in short, yes, you can. Foreign investment is very welcomed in the UK and is a common thing that we see. So in short, yes, you can. It just sometimes means there's a few more kind of checks when it comes to your ID and also where the funds are coming from. Again, with bridging, a few less checks. With standard limited company mortgages, a few more checks, and sometimes a larger deposit. Sometimes some lenders will say rather than 25%, you might need that 30, 35, 40, dependent on the scenario.
That's a very, very good point. That's really good to note, guys, honestly. Do you need a UK bank account to get mortgage or bridging finance at all?
It helps. Don't get me wrong. It's handy, but absolutely not. A lot of banks are international banks. Just let's point out the big kind of, banks and lenders. So your HSBCs, your Barclays, a lot of these are international Santander type of banks, and the lenders will accept international accounts. Of course, it will help if your funds are from the UK or sitting in the UK bank account. It will speed things up, less kind of checks, but we can make either work. Nice.
And I know, again, not tax advice or anything, not to put you on the spot, but do you pay extra taxes if you're outside the UK? And can you even answer the question?
I can't from a business point of view, but from a personal point of view, this isn't tax advice. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more. Of course, speak to your accountant, go and get financial advice, but there may be potential interest rates from certain lenders, or there may be further to kind of tax implications. But yeah, speak to an accountant on that one.
Smart. I can see what's going back every time. I love it. So can I get a mortgage in the UK without a UK credit history?
Bridging cash really isn't a problem because we're not looking particularly at the credit report. This is where sometimes cash is king, that old saying. If you're using cash, you're not reliant on checks on you. So that's where cash wins. But bridging is very similar. So again, goes back to what we were saying. Not many checks with bridging finance, quite a few checks with limited company. But a UK credit history is not essential. Quite often we can get a credit report internationally from abroad.
Good answer. And how do currency and exchange rates affect said investments? If you're buying a buy-to-let, do the currency and exchange rate affect anything at all?
Yeah, absolutely. As you could imagine, currency, whether you're going on holiday or buying property, and currency and exchange rates are always going to affect your investment, similar to they're going to affect your spending money when you go away. Weird analogy, but the same principle behind it.
Yeah, but I think it really paints a picture for people, doesn't it? Because at the end of the day, it does come down to that. So I think that's a really, really good point. Can I buy through a company based on home? Yeah. So if you've got a foreign limited company, can you buy through that company, or does it have to be UK based?
Opens you up to a lot more lenders, as we said, in terms of interest rates. So just referring back to some of the previous ones, it really does help UK bank account, UK limited company. But if you've got the right setup, yes, I'm not going to say anything is possible, but with the right structure and the right type of company, yes, you can still buy.
Awesome. I mean, I've got two more questions, but I feel like you've summed them already. So is it easier to use bridging if I'm overseas? And can you help me if I'm not in the UK? I basically have yes to both, really, isn't it, pretty much? So I'd pretty much finish off to say, like, do you have any golden nuggets that you give anyone watching this from your experience? That you've done this for years. I know that you know what you're doing. You're very prevalent on social media, so I'll check your socials in the link as well, so people can watch that. I think that's really gonna showcase a lot of knowledge, because the one thing that really is good about what you do is you're almost documenting what you're doing of helping clients alongside. Basically documenting it via your stories and everything. Via social media. So if anyone wants to check out what Michael does, check out his socials and just watch his story each day, because I do, and I learn something new every time watching that. I think that's really valuable.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, golden nuggets, I'd kind of really keep it to a minimum, because I don't want to send anyone to sleep. But if you're buying via a mortgage, get your mortgage in principle early so you know it works, and do speak to a broker. Don't try and cut corners. Find properties yourself without the assistance of Ryan, or without a broker for the finance. It's going to save you money in the long run and stress. My golden nugget would be, if you're looking at the mortgage, the limited company mortgages or personal name buy-to-let mortgages, it's not based off your salary. If you're on £100,000 a year, it doesn't mean you're going to lend any more than someone on 10,000 a year, because they're basing what they're lending you off the rental income, not your income. So that'd be the real basic bit of information, but quite often people get that wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
So you've got to just kind of think about the property you're buying, or Ryan, the property you present to a client. The next property is going to get a different rental income, so the lend will vary off of that. With bridging finance, know your time frame, because we all know renovations and renovations and refurbs go on longer than you expect potentially. So don't get caught short, because the idea of extending a bridging finance is extremely stressful and expensive. And just consult experts throughout the journey.
Oh, well phrased. Yeah, but I got to say, that's really valuable, and I really appreciate you making time for this, man. It's been and left, front, and centre, to be honest with you.
Absolute pleasure. I'd always say anything like this, I'd love to jump on in future. Any clients need any help, always feel free to kind of reach out.
Yeah. So what I'll do, I'll break down the description where it's got kind of like your socials, how to reach out to you. And I highly recommend, even if you don't want to reach out to Michael for a chat, watch his socials in terms of being educational and informative as much as anything, and then definitely booking a call with him. Even if you've got questions, I've known Michael for a while now, and he's friendly, approachable, and extremely knowledgeable, as you can tell. So that's my speech.
Top stuff. I really appreciate you having me on, so thank you.
Pleasure, man. Pleasure.